Testing, testing. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here. Hello and welcome. As always, we are here live on Sunday night to look at army lists submitted by you guys, the community. So, I get 3 lists to look at tonight. Our lists for tonight are Outdoor Corey, Slim Hogan, and Ian Heimgarnet. Sorry, Ian. I'm just going to call you Ian. That's the end of it. I'm terrible at pronouncing names, please. If you've watched any of my streams, you will know that I suck at pronouncing stuff. Quite a lot of people in the chat tonight already. Life RPG, Camille, Daniel. Oh, Ian's here as well. Cool. Alright, Ian. He is, hope you're ready to see some Death Company shenanigans. I guess we'll see. Death Company did get cheaper and better. Yeah, and Douglas has hit the like button. If you do get some value out tonight's stream, I always appreciate it if you do hit the like button. And if you are new here, you can consider subscribing. We do Blood Angels content pretty much every week. Yeah, unless I'm on holiday or something. It's every week. So, cool. You can also ask questions in chat. Good afternoon, Oddsod. Someone got the Black Rage? Who got the Black Rage? Dirty Wizard says, 5 Death Company and Thunderhammers and a Chaplain, 1 Company Champion, 5 Veterans to pile out of my Termite drill. I mean, I think I want to get a Termite today, as well. I think the Termite is a cool drill to have. Can't arrive in turn 1, right? But from turn 2 onwards, I think it can be pretty scary. Flesh Tearers can do a lot of work with the Termite drill. And the other thing that I like about the Termite drill a lot is, like, I always forget the melee damage that it can do, but its melee damage is actually kind of sick, right? The Termite Drill is 2 times strength, so strength 14, minus 4, D3 plus 3, and that's what it is. If it's allocated to against an enemy vehicle, it's D3 plus 6. So, it's got a weapon skill of 4 that doesn't degrade, and then I guess you get 5 attacks on the charge. 5 attacks, hitting on 4s. Do you know what? It's something that I haven't really done, but do you know what would actually be really good synergy with a Terrax drill would be Quake Bolts? Because there's normally no way to really improve it, right? Because like a Tech Marine only improves ballistic skill, so the only way you could possibly improve the weapon skill, I think, is with Quake Bolts. Make those hitting on 3s. It's pretty fun. Pretty fun. Good evening, everybody that's tuning in. Thanks for being here. Alright, let's have a look at this first list for tonight, and I guess we'll start with Ian, because I already saw Ian in the chat, so it would make sense to start there. Cool. I submitted a list to you after Halloween, but it didn't work. This is the build I've shifted to before Christmas. I usually take Repair, Teleport, Homer, Linebreaker, and Oath of Moment. I guess Linebreaker is now called Behind Enemy Lines, right? The Terminators have been the ones I've been using to repair, and Infiltrators when shit goes wrong. The Stormhawk? I'm not actually sure what a Stormhawk is, maybe you've called this wrong, is held in reserve at the beginning of the game and used to punch a hole in any screens for the Terminators. Everything else is kind of a toss-up Crash Force, but I dig Death Company Marines, enjoy. Okay, let's have a look. So we've got a Vanguard detachment starting on 8 CP, which is quite a lot to start with on a Vanguard detachment, and we're at 1996 points. We have specifically called out Mephiston as the Lord of Death. This is kind of cute, I guess. We don't see it very often. So Mephiston, he is the Warlord, Speed of the Primarch, Unleash Rage, Shield, and Wings. And I don't like him as a Warlord. I don't think he really brings much value. We had a long talk last night about, like, if he had the Psychic Mastery Warlord trait, I could totally get on board with Mephiston being a Warlord, but Speed of the Primarch, if people are charging Mephiston, they're probably going to choose that unit to kill him first, so you're not even going to get any value out of him being the Warlord. I don't mind Mephiston in a list, I just don't think he's in a great place right now. Good evening, Camille, how you doing? Mephiston's okay in a list at 140 points. He's just not worth the Warlord part. Your powers overall are fine. I guess you must have a good target for Shield. I take Unleash Rage and Wings. My other power is Blood Boil, but I guess Shield makes sense if you need to get something with a 5-up invuln. We've got the Death Company Captain on the bike. who has the Rights of War and a Thunderhammer and the Shield Eternal. Ooh, it's been a little while since we've seen the Shield Eternal. That's when you upgrade a Storm Shield to give what? It just gives a 5-up, Feel No Pain as well? It's actually maybe not a bad shout on the Death Company Captain. On a roll of 5+, that wound is not lost. Okay, I mean, it's okay. I mean, Death Company do get a 6-up Feel No Pain anyway, so you can pay 1 CP and get the Refusal to Die 5-up. I understand. I guess you want to make the captain tankier. Would Armor Indomitus be better here? I mean, it might be, because you've given him a Storm Shield, because you can't have the Shield Eternal without having a Storm Shield, right? So he's already got a 2-up save. So if you give him Armor Indomitus, he's got that 1-up save. He's got an extra wound. So Shield Eternal gives you a 5-up. I'm just going to do some very quick maths. A Death Company Captain on a bike has 6 wounds, right? So it's like 6 times 1.333 is essentially 8 wounds. But if you gave him Armor Indomitus, he would have 1 extra wound, but you'd only be times 1.666. So Armor Indomitus actually gives him more wounds, or Armor Indomitus gives him more survivability. It gives him more wounds as well, but yeah, it gives him more survivability because you've got that extra wound. The Shield Eternal's only giving you a +1. Does the Shield Eternal give you something better against mortals or something? Am I missing something? No? So by taking Armor Indomitus, you make your normal... So on a Shield Eternal, you've got 2+, 4++, 5++, and 6 wounds. On Armor Indomitus, you've got 1+, 4++, 6++, but 7 wounds. And then you also have the once per phase, per game. You can go on a 3++, right? So maybe you've included Armor Indomitus later in the list? No, it doesn't look like it. So this is probably more survivable. Unfortunately, you can't take Angel's Artifice unless you're a chapter master. So the Death Company Captain on a bike wouldn't have the option to take Angel's Artifice. Where do you submit a list? Over in the community tab, Bill. You click the link, I was going to say, at the top. Basically like youtube.com/c/Blood Angels Commander. That is the link to the channel, and then click on the community tab, post your link in the latest community post in there. And I'll find it and I'll add it to the queue. The queue is quite long for non-members, just be aware. Shield Eternal is so good as stratagem with Elfware. The armor might be the way to go, as I didn't choose it because he has a death vision that kind of covers that too. He has the death vision, but you can only... Here's the thing with the death vision, and it's been a little while since I used the death vision, but you only get to use that death vision when you... The one that you're talking about is on the Bridge of Eventual Spirit. On the bridge... You only can use death visions once per battle when the model is selected to fight. You can use the death vision, which is fine if you make the charge. If the enemy charges you, you can't use the death vision. The death vision we're talking about is Grace of the Angel, the one that gives you a 3-up invulnerable save. But you can't use that if you're not fighting first, right? Because you only activate the death vision when you select to fight. So you can use that defensively when you attack, but you can't use it defensively if you get charged, whereas Armor Indomitus you can. Yeah, I mean, if you've not tried Armor Indomitus, the maths here say it's actually better. And then I guess for 1 CP you could actually make this... You could actually put yourself on a 5+++ here as well. So Armor Indomitus is a better pick from Shield Eternal 100%. Okay, and I guess with Armor Indomitus you ignore -1 AP, right? Because you're on a 2-up save from Armor Indomitus, +1 from the Storm Shield, putting you on a 1-up save, so you can ignore those -1 AP, which can be pretty powerful. Like, if the enemy's ever going to try and, like, whittle you down with, like, Bolter Fire, AP0, AP1, you're just ignoring it, you're just saving on 2s. So that's cool as well. Alright, Infiltrators and Cursors are your 2 troop choices. It seems like a real pity you don't have a 3rd troop choice, to make it a battalion, because obviously a battalion, you'd get 3 CP back, and CP are obviously quite valuable. Hey Commander, what's the website where we saw all their Terminator stats last stream? Where we saw all the Terminator stats last stream? What? The website that I use? This one? Wapedia? Is that what you're asking? I'll put Wapedia in chat. That's the one that's got like a lot of the data that I use when I'm streaming. Okay, then we've got Elite. So we get Death Company Marines times 10, Jump Packs, Plasma Pistols, Power Axes, Power Swords, and Chain Swords. I hate the Plasma Pistols, honestly. I mean, I guess you've got Death Company Captain on a bike, so potentially you can reroll 1s, but Plasma Pistols, the points you spend on Plasma Pistols, like, that's 50 points, right? Like, I feel like you'd spend 50 points way more effectively, like, if you dropped, like, all the Plasma Pistols, you could have a few more Thunder Hammers, a couple of Infernal Pistols. Yeah, I mean, it's fine, I just dislike Plasma Pistols. I kind of always feel like Plasma Pistols, you're always stuck shooting them on low power. It's a lot of points to spend for a single strength 7 -3/1 damage shot. You know, like, if you run this into the new Custodes, for example, they can turn off your rerolls, for example. So, like, you can't ever shoot Plasma Pistols on high power against Custodes, because they'll just be like, right, you can't reroll any of your 1s, and you're going to kill your own models. Death Company with hammers and Infernal Pistols is sort of my preference, but rank them from best to worst. Oh, right, it's just 40k stats. Just Google 40k stats, I guess. And it's the top one, and it's like, I think is it here? No. I think I just Googled 40k win rate. I think this is it. 40kstats.com. Yeah, /faction breakout. I'll put that in the chat as well. Okay. Excuse me. So, 10 Death Company with Plasma Pistols, that's fine. The Power Axes, Power Swords, Chain Swords is kind of all fine. I like having the Thunder Hammers in there, but this is fine. 5 Death Company. Why are these guys so expensive? This must be a typo. 5 Death Company, Jump Packs, Infernal Pistols, 10 Chain Swords. Is it 5 with Infernal Pistols and 10 with Chain Swords? Okay, yeah, so you've got a mixed squad here with Infernal Pistols, that's fine. Sanguinary Guard, 3 Infernal Pistols, 2 Power Fists, Axes and Swords. That's probably an okay shout on the Sanguinary Guard, because we talked about how Ramshackle can really fuck the Sanguinary Guard. It is 10 Marines, okay, thanks. So I think having a couple of Power Fists in the Sanguinary Guard is probably a good call, and also Infernal Pistols. I know maybe 6 months ago people talked about running multiple squads of Sanguinary Guard. I actually don't think it's strong anymore. I run one myself, but just one. Maybe 3 months ago, 2 months ago, I was running 2, but I think there's too many counters to Sanguinary Guard now, and they are just Marines with a +1 on their save. They don't really survive. So 1 squad of Sanguinary Guard is fine. 8 is probably a good size. You can get away with 7, but 8 is a good size. We've got 2 squads of Terminators, all with Thunder Hammers and Storm Shields, and the Teleport Homers. I kind of like getting a couple of sets of Lightning Claws into these Terminator squads. Lightning Claws are surprisingly viable in terms of, like, damage output on Terminators, because a Thunder Hammer gets 4 attacks, a Lightning Claw guy gets 6, rerolling all the wounds. If your Terminators ever get charged by chaff units, you know, like bogged down, you can always keep the Lightning Claw guys alive to just chew through like a bunch of chaff units. But I mean, in general, Terminators with Thunderhammers are very strong and survivable. I actually do like them. I don't run 2 squads myself, but because I think they're too slow. But yeah, I mean, they're a good unit right now. The Stormhawk. I'm gonna have to look this up. I literally never run the Stormhawk. Is that something that we got access to in 9th edition that maybe we didn't have access to before? Stormhawk Interceptor, 210 points. I think you paid for this, right? 205. And what's the weapon loadout? 2 assault cannons, an Icarus storm cannon, and Typhoon missile launcher. So it's 2 assault cannons, which is like heavy. 2 assault cannons would be heavy 12. Icarus storm cannon is essentially auto cannon with +1 to hit against aircraft, and against aircraft you make 2 rolls to hit. Alright, so it's like aircraft to aircraft combat. And the last thing was the Typhoon missile launcher, which is just a cyclone missile launcher essentially. Okay, I mean that's kind of pricey, 205 points for just 10 wounds, 3 up save. Yeah, it is actually very pricey. What did you say you were doing with the storm? It's held in reserve. Yeah, I was going to say, reserve makes a lot of sense for this, because that can definitely get blown up very quickly by the enemies. It doesn't have that much firepower. I mean, if you factor in its weapon skill of 3, you're making 8 hits with an assault cannon, you're making, 2 hits with an autocannon, you're making 1 or 2 hits with a crack missile. Okay, for 205 points, Stormhawks. I wonder, what does the Stormhawk look like? This one. Where did we put it in the tier list? Excuse me. Let me just log in off screen. Is it flyer and dedicated transport? We put it high C, I guess. So we thought it was kind of crappy. I mean, for the points cost, it does feel like it's a bit overcosted. It is a bit of anti-infantry firepower, I guess, but nothing amazing. Stuart said, "Good evening, I had a really tough time yesterday against my mate. He was an orc player. He fielded a Stompa and it was incredible, unless you kill it on turn 1 and then leave it alone. Unless you kill it turn 1, then leave it alone and move far away from it." Yeah, I mean, sometimes when people field, super heavies, or, something equivalent to, Mortarion, there is 2 choices. You either try and put everything in and kill it and go Titan Hunter, or you kind of try and ignore it, right? I've been really frustrated with the starters recently, very slow, and yeah, gonna try impulsors, maybe 3 of them loaded with 6 marines each and try and bag objectives, otherwise we are slow. Yeah, I mean, if you're playing Blood Angels, then, I mean, you should have multiple jump pack units. Impulsors, we've had debates on this channel about impulsors, and honestly, a lot of people think they're poor. A bunch of different people have tried them. It feels like every week someone else tries an impulsor because they think that they're going to be able to do better with them, but they're really not survivable. They're a lot of points, and they don't transport that many models. So impulsors are a weird one. Alright, so you said, "Greetings, brothers, welcome to that belief, first name..." Oh, right, yeah. Okay, so that's just some random crap that's, I guess, being posted in. Cool. Alright, so it's 2 Terminator squads, 2 Death Company squads, both 10-man, Sanguinary Guard on 8, the Stormhawk Intercessors, the 2 troops, and the 2 characters. Is that 2,000 points? I guess 600. I guess the big squads of Death Company really rack the points up. I suppose that's 900 points near enough. 900 points plus 600. Yeah, okay. Right, let me think of a minute. You're starting with a lot of command points. I actually wonder if both these Death Company squads could lose like a couple of models to get that third troop squad and get you the additional command points. I guess Mephiston has to be your warlord because the only other character you have is the Death Company captain. So I mean, that makes sense. I actually kind of feel like maybe a Sanguinary Ancient could have been useful here for the +1 to hit for the Death Company, or the other option would really be to take Quake Bolts, maybe on your incursors, try and get a Quake Bolt off to give them +1 to hit. So that could be a relic you could take. Another option, I suppose, you could be is you could mastercraft one of these Terminator's Thunderhammers. So you've got a 4 damage Terminator Sergeant here. If you did need some points, you know what? You could actually drop like 1 Death Company out of both squads. That would be like 40 points. You could drop a Thunderhammer out of each 2 squads for Lightning Claws. That would be like 60 points. So you could definitely fit like a third troop choice here without too much trouble. Riziel says the Stormhawk will shred toughness 3, which I guess is true. If you're just trying to blast out some screens, it's okay. Mephiston actually probably has some value here in the Unleash Rage on the 3 big squads. Actually will give like a shitload of extra attacks. So the thing, I guess you just gotta keep CP for Mephiston to reroll the psychic tests, but it seems like you're able to do that. I was gonna say like a Firstborn Librarian with a jump pack and the Chief Apoth. The Firstborn Librarian with a jump pack and the Chief Librarian upgrade and the Psychic Mastery is going to be the same 140 points as Mephiston. So you could take the same 3 powers, but you could get +1 to all your casts. I guess that would cost you 1 more CP though, because you would have to. No, it wouldn't cost you any CP if you made him your warlord, actually. Yeah, but I don't know, Mephiston, you have to use him in combat, I guess, to get value out of him, because he can do a bit of combat, right? He's a tricky character to play. That's why I mean, Shield of Sanguinius is going to be very useful for like your 10-man Death Companies. Alright. Units for actions is a little bit low. 3 damage weapons is probably okay at the moment, because you've got 10 Thunderhammers plus 5 Infernal Pistols. I do think you want some Thunderhammers in these Death Company squads. Like, Death Company have terrible morale, and you don't really have anything that's going to help them morale-wise. I guess that's probably why like a lot of people run the Chaplain on the bike, because the Chaplain on the bike is the same 150 points, right? And it lets Death Company within, or it lets any model within 6 use his leadership of 9. Shield of Sanguinius goes on the Stormhawk. Alright, I assumed you would put it on the Death Company. Death Company need hammers, not pistols. I think that's probably pretty accurate. The way you have to beat orcs, Stuart, is that you have to dictate the charges. Every time the orcs player charges you, he will kill a shitload of stuff. So, you need to dictate the charges or give him juicy targets that he's going to charge after that you're not going to need to win the game. I actually had a great game against orcs on the channel last Monday night where I like kind of crushed him. And he did make a bunch of charges early game, but I gave up units that I didn't particularly need in the late game. Okay, so in the moment there is like 18, 19, 20, 21 3 damage weapons, 22 I guess if you include Mephiston, and maybe 23 if you include the fact that he can smite. So you've got a good number of 3 damage weapons. I do think the Death Company loadouts feel a little bit inefficient. I do think the Terminator squads probably would be better with some Lightning Claws. Already having 21 3 damage weapons, you're absolutely fine. I think that maybe the Stormhawk, something you could do better than the Stormhawk, maybe. What would be better might be Contemptor Dreadnought or something. The Death Company Captain would be better with Shield Eternal. Mephiston's a weird one. You kind of just have to live with it. And the last thing I would definitely try and do is... I mean, this list is so aggressive. So by being so aggressive, I wonder if you even need the Infiltrators, right? Maybe just get like 2 more squads of Incursors. And just go forward deployment with Incursors and have them back up early charges from like your other stuff. Might be an option as well. I think using a lot of Infernal Pistols... I agree with Reziel in that, like, I think using too many Infernal Pistols is... Like, I'm trying to think my list at the moment. I think I got 2 Infernal Pistols on my list. Yeah, 2 Infernal Pistols, and you maybe expect to, like... kill you maybe if you have 2 Infernal Pistols in your list, you maybe expect the enemy to fail like 1 Infernal Pistol attack per game. Like, you're often not in range to shoot them. I do think there's a worry about, because like when you start putting them onto like Sanguinary Guard, they become so expensive. 37 points per model. They're more expensive than a Terminator with an extra wound at that point, and they do just die very, very quickly. They've got no invulnerable save. Okay, alright, yeah, we're going to do a bit of scoring on this list. Where is my scoring tab? Here we go. Alright, so 2 troop choices for OBSEC, but we have Rights of War in there as well, so I'm going to give you an 8.5 for that. Anti-Horde Infantry, and when we talk about Anti-Horde, we're talking about shooting. Your shooting is low, I guess. The Stormhawk, the Sanguinary Guard. I mean, Incursors and Infiltrators, in my experience, really don't kill shit in the shooting phase, so maybe like a 7. Anti-Monster Vehicle, we get like 21 3 damage weapons, we talked about that. I guess there's a lot of ways for you to close the distance with the enemies. With the Terminators arriving in Deep Strike, you've got a lot of CP, you can get charge rerolls, you can form on Fury, I guess Mephiston can fly, so I think overall, like 21 3 damage weapons means you've got potential to kill a lot of big stuff. You also have Unleash Rage, so you can buff up a bunch of different attacks. Good evening, Casper. Thanks for tuning in. Mobility-wise, this is a very mobile list, right? The only thing that I guess is not mobile are your troops, but they can be mobile for 1 CP with Guerrilla Tactics. So mobility-wise, I'm going to give you a 9. I want to give you a 9.5 actually. No, do you know what? We got some Terminators, so we're gonna say 9 because the Terminators are slow. I mean, you do have the Teleport Homer in both squads, but once they arrive on the battlefield, they are kind of slow. So it's very mobile. I was gonna go 9.5, but I think Terminators bring it down a tad. My formula. I guess I deleted my formula. Dumb. And specialization. So we have no way to cancel Overwatch, which is gonna be a big problem against Tau. We have no Fight Last. We have a couple of denies from Mephiston. We have a couple units for actions, maybe. We have 21 3 damage weapons. We have a good number of CP and mortal wound protection. We have none. Out with the Death Company having like an innate mortal wound 6-up protection. So CP is good. Mortal wound protection is not good. 3 damage weapons is good. Units for actions is not good. Denies is okay, and these other 2 are poor. So it's maybe like a 7 for specialization. So when I talk about specialization, I kind of say you can't do everything. You gotta pick some things. Thank you for that, John. John says the battle from Monday night was awesome. I'm hoping to get a battle tomorrow night against Kev. I'm waiting for him to text me his list so I can get the stream set up. But I did message him like this morning. He hasn't logged into Messenger in 17 hours, which is annoying. Infiltrators are essential vs Tau, stopping turn 1, having Death Star of battlesuits in your lines. I guess. I do think Infiltrators are a good unit now. I've always thought Infiltrators are good, but yeah, they're probably a little bit better. Anti-personnel, you should have melee power, like much attacks, much AP, let's say Vanguard Veterans. Vanguard veterans are a good squad, don't get me wrong. I mean, you could easily swap out one of these Terminator squads for a Vanguard veteran squad, and I think you would still be in good shape. What army would Kev be taking? I think he was supposed to be bringing Eldari, so yeah. Okay. 5 battle suits deploying next to Shadow Sun and stealth suits, you're gone. Yeah, I mean, Tau are in a kind of a horrible place right now. They're just so strong. They're just... I expect we're going to see Tau go up in points in the first FAQ. I wouldn't worry too much about it. I don't know when the FAQ will be, but I actually thought maybe Custodes will go up in points as well. It does seem like Tau and Custodes, and I think pretty soon Eldar and Harlequins are just going to all be top. They're all really, really well. Really, really competitive point costed. This is what I was saying in my stream last night. I was like, if you have an idea for a Blood Angels list, now is the time to try it. Now is the time to try out other units. Because overall, where we stand currently, I would say we are not super competitive at all. Infiltrator saved my butt this weekend, says Life RPG. Nice. Okay, so, I mean, this is a decent list, Ian. I think there is some improvements that you could make for sure. I feel so sad that Mephiston's Warlord trait is trash, but I mean, it just is. It should be so good. Mephiston is so powerful in the lore, but his Warlord trait is just so bad. Okay, Slim Hogan. We're going to go over the list first, and then we'll read what he said, so I've got like some context. Okay, Captain on a Bike, Heroic Bearing, Chapter Master, Infernal Pistol, Rites of War, Armor Indomitus, Thunderhammer, Warlord trait. Alright, interesting to see Heroic Bearing actually picked as a choice. And Rites of War obviously adding OBSEC to units, which is kind of cool. Primaris Chaplain on the Bike with the Soul Warden. Mantra of Strength, Canticle of Hate. Benediction of Fury. I do not like this weapon at all. Master of Sanctity, Crozius, Litany of Hate, Twin Bolt Rifle. I've used the Benediction of Fury a bunch of times, and I want to say that the mortal wound part of it is super unreliable, right? Like, it's like 1 mortal wound if you roll a 6. Well, you only get like 6 attacks, right? So, yeah. I think the fact it can do mortal wounds when you're picking Benediction of Fury as an upgrade to the Chaplain on a Bike, just sort of question if you're actually going to roll any 6s. Because for me, like, I've used it in multiple games, I never feel like I get a 6 on the... You don't get enough attacks to make enough 6s, so the mortal wound part of it is like really low value. So at that point, it's just +1 AP but at +1 damage. You could already get +1 damage from Mantra of Strength, right? And a lot of people do run Mantra of Strength. So I guess it's a question mark around if you feel like you need a 4 damage Crozius, I guess, right? Okay. And then we get the Sanguinary Priest with the Chief Apothecary and the Stealthless Healer, and he is running the Teeth of Terra. So I think this is the aggressive Sanguinary Priest that we can see sometimes. He's starting with 7 CP, so quite a few CP spent here on the characters. Yeah, I mean, if it was me, I'd probably actually just try and make the Primaris Chaplain on a Bike more survivable. Maybe this is the play that Rezio was saying earlier, like maybe the Armor Indomitus would be better on the Chaplain on the Bike and give the Captain on the Bike the Angel of Artifice, so he's toughness 6 with 7 wounds. So you have the... Yeah, I mean, either or is probably fine. I don't know, Benediction of Fury has never performed for me. I've run it a bunch of times. The way I look at it, probably, the way that maybe makes even more sense is like, let's say you've got Benediction of Fury and you do a little bit more damage in turn 1, but then you're dead for the rest of the game. Whereas, like, if you give him, like, Armor Indomitus and you survive through, like, multiple really nasty turns, which can happen because you can get that 3-up save and you get that extra wound and stuff, can you end up doing more damage just because you've been alive a couple extra turns? And that's how I kind of look at Benediction of Fury, I guess. I'm all for it. Like, I like the idea of the 4 damage weapon. It just in practice, it just seems like it's wasted. Okay, Assault Intercessors and 2 squads of Incursors next, which is sort of a standard loadout we see in a lot of battalions. I think it's good. If Infiltrators were able to be squeezed in, great. Someone was just saying that Infiltrators are great. But points are so difficult for us right now because we're playing an uphill battle, I guess. A lot of armies are slightly cheaper, slightly better pointed than us, I feel like. Alright, we got Death Company Marines with Thunderhammers times 5. We've got Sanguinary Guard with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 axes and an Infernal Pistol. Another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Sanguinary Guard. I don't like multiple squads of Sanguinary Guard right now. Personally, there's too many things that counter them. There really is. I guess it depends on your meta, but like if you actually want me to list all the things that counter these guys now, it's starting to get fucking crazy how many things are countering these. We then have the Vanguard Veterans with Lightning Claws, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And I'm a little bit sad to see no Thunderhammer, even just if it would be on maybe the Sergeant or something. I think like a couple of Thunderhammers into the Vanguard Veteran squads is always good. Eradicators with the Heavy Melt Rifles, and the Whirlwind with the Castellan Launcher. And I guess the Eradicators have a multi-melt here as well. In practice, I actually find the Heavy Melter Rifles kind of hard to play. Because it makes the Eradicators much less mobile. So I guess if you're okay with that, and you feel like you've got a handle on that, then great. But for me, it felt... I guess it maybe makes sense if you're running one with a multi-melter, because obviously you can't advance and shoot the multi-melter. How much would 4 Eradicators be with no heavy melter rifles, right? Like, what, 25 more points? I'd probably be okay trying to find 25 more points here to make that, to run 4 without, but you're building heavy melter rifles. Well, I mean, I try to run my heavy melter rifles multiple times. Heavy melter rifles to me feels like if the enemy comes to you, they're great, but if you have to go to the enemy, they kind of suck. So, it is what it is, I guess. The regular melter rifles just felt like more all-round, more... I don't run heavies anymore. I try to run them. I always try to run things, and then once I find their weaknesses, I kind of ditch them, I guess. Alright, so Slim says, "Hey John, I hope you're keeping well. I believe that my list may be up for review. I've made a fair few changes." Okay. This is some other crap. So he says, "Good day, John. I've made pretty big change to the list in the way of dropping Assault Terminators, Librarian Dreads, and Tech Marines to switch to a more mobile and melee heavy army. It's a bit lighter on 3 damage weapons, but it has a high volume of attacks to try and counter it. It's a bit strange to get used to at first with only the Eradicators as my heavy shooting, but I've managed to win 5 games I've played with this list against Dark Angels, Death Guard, Grey Knights, Minotaurs, and Space Wolves, but I'm unsure how this play out and out against some of the more meta armies." Yeah, I mean, the melee list is going to struggle against Custodes and Tau. There's no way around it. Game plan is generally put Death Company Assault Doctor and with rerolls and Alpha, strike them in turn 1, or hold them back for turn 2 charge if you go second. Get some more board and objective control in turn 2 with both combat squads of Vanguard Veterans and first squad of Sanguinary Guard. Eradicators generally start on the board, but to keep their distance and cover. Second squad of Sanguinary Guard come in from Deep Strike in turn 2, but generally don't charge until 3 to avoid failed charge rolls as much as possible, which makes a lot of sense. Secondaries have been R&D, Engage, Stranglehold, and Oath. I've been thinking of potentially trying to find a way to bring in some Assault Terminators, Blade Guard Veterans, or Vanguard Veterans with hammers, so I'm looking forward to hear your feedback. I'm glad you said that. I would drop one of your squads of Sanguinary Guard. 200 points on the dot for 3 Terminators with Thunderhammers, 2 with Lightning Claws, and 3 timers with Thunderhand, 2 lightning claws, and a teleport homer. This list is 1998 points, so straight away that would save you the 25 points that you could go for Eradicators with regular melta rifles on 180 points. That would probably be an improvement just straight off, because it gives you mobility. And we often talk about mobility being king in 9th edition, and mobility being king for Blood Angel as well. Or swap them out and keep your Eradicators. If you like running the heavy melta rifle Eradicators and you think they are good for you, then that would be fine. Use the 24 points to put a Thunderhammer into each Vanguard Veteran squad. I just think there's you guys have been watching my stream. I've been painting a 5-man squad of Terminators now for 2 months. Just before I was painting them, I actually bought another box of Sangre Guard. I honestly have 30 Sangre Guard painted. I bought even more to make more with axes, and in hindsight, I'm kind of regretting that I did, because I don't need them anymore. I don't think the meta has changed, even from last year, I guess, when I was buying more Sangre Guard. It feels like every new army has a -1 damage element to it in some way, shape, or form. It also feels like Strength 6 with +1 to wound isn't that strong at all anymore. You go back 6 months, maybe your Sangre Guard, you were able to wound most enemies on 2s. Now it feels like you're wounding them on 4s. Also, Sangre Guard just get gunned down in the open so easily. I would like to see a Primaris Sangre Guard, yeah, but I think they would need to actually get if there's a lot of problems with Primaris models in general. They're not very effectively costed. They're not very competitive, and we were actually having a joke on my painting stream last night that there was 8 units, 8 Primaris models, 8 Primaris units that are just absolutely trash. There's probably even more. There's probably 10 Primaris models or Primaris squads that are just utter garbage, and you don't see them at all, and it makes no sense. Because I was actually thinking after I got off stream, our aggressors kind of garbage as well, because we never see aggressors now, right? And it's just little things that could fix. Little things could probably fix all the models that are garbage, but for whatever reason they've just been left and they are garbage. I would love to see Primaris Sangre Guard. I'm not super excited about painting up 30 Primaris Sangre Guard, because I guess they'll be good when they come out. But yeah, I think I would like to see them, right? Or they could maybe just make the current ones a lot better. If you look at the Harlequins rules that just came out, the Banshees for the Eldar. The Banshees are just nuts. They're twice as good as Sangre Guard in half the points. I think that's probably pretty accurate, right? Okay, so I would get Terminators in because I think that they're durable and they're useful right now. I do feel like there's an opportunity in this list for Quake Bolts. I always think Quake, if you've got a lot of jump units, like Vanguard Veterans, their weakness is probably their weapon skill of 3. Death Company Marines, their weapon skill of 3. Obviously, Sangre Guard can boost them, but both of those would benefit from Quake Bolts. I guess used right, your Captain and your Chaplain can probably help out, but there is an opportunity, I guess, for Quake Bolts in here. One squad of Sangre Guard with axes and Infernal Pistol is fine. I already said I've already given my 2 cents on the Eradicators. Your characters, I kind of gave my 2 cents on the Benediction of Fury pick. The only other thing that I would say is Heroic Bearing really worth it? Is that the best? Do you often find that your models are more than 9 inches away, or 6 inches to 9 inches to get that those rerolls of 1s, right? Is rerolling 1 on 3 more inches more valuable than keeping your Chapter Master alive? I mean, maybe. I would even prefer Selfless Valor. I just don't really rate Heroic Bearing. I know some people like it. I mean, I guess maybe it can give you a bigger aura of the reroll ones, but I don't know. I feel like I could just get +1 to hit or reroll ones elsewhere, and then have my character survive. But yeah, Heroic Bearing, I guess, in principle, it's fine, right? It helps with leadership, I guess, which Sanguinary Guard and Death Company don't have great leadership. So I'm okay with the Heroic Bearing. I don't love it, but I'll settle for it, right? Okay. Scoring. And it's going to start pretty strong because we have 3 OBSEC units, so that would be like an 8.5, and we got Rites of War, so we're on a 9.5. Shooting wise, if we didn't make any changes, we just basically got really the Sanguinary Guard's guns. The Eradicators are never going to kill hordes. And Cursors, I guess, can kill like 1 or 2 models, and I'm going to say the same sort of 7. You don't have a lot of anti-horde infantry firepower. In fact, it's probably less than the other lists, because the other list at least had like an actual model dedicated to it. But I guess you've got Whirlwind, so Whirlwind can do a little bit of horde killing. It's pushing it, but it can. 3 damage weapons then. You have your Captain with 2, you have your Chaplain with 1, you have the Death Company bringing 5 more, so that's 8, an Infernal Pistol here, that is 9, and the Heavy Melter Rifle Eradicators, so up to 12. So I'm going to say like a 9 for anti-monster vehicle. I think if you swap out the squad of Sanguinary Guard, you're in a lot better position. I think 2 damage weapons are just in a shit place right now. So anything that's either 1 damage or 3 damage, or even D3 damage is... D3 damage, as it stands, is 33% more damaging than 2 damage weapons against those -1 damage targets. And if you're going to any sort of tournament, you're going to run into -1 damage nonsense. It's everywhere. You know, Thousand Suns can do it, Death Guard can do it, Dreadnoughts can do it, Custodes can do it, Eldar can do it, Orcs can do it. I'm sure I'm missing some, but everybody can throw out -1 damage. Champion of Humanity is not bad on that bite, Captain. Champion of Humanity is the one that gives you more attacks, right? Against characters. Champion of Humanity, I guess, is okay. Iron Resolve might be okay to keep him alive, right? Like, he doesn't have any sort of shrug as it stands, and a shrug on a 6 wound bite captain can actually be quite valuable. So, yeah, there's better. In my opinion, it's a different playstyle. My playstyle is usually about trying to keep models alive to hang in there, and I always think that, like, if that captain survives 1 extra turn and he's got a Thunderhammer and an Infernal Pistol, he can do a bunch of damage by himself. If you guys watched that game against Orcs last Monday, my chapter master fucked some shit up. He was on the right side of the map, and I think he killed 2 scrapjets, which is like 200 points, right? Then he killed like 6 or 7. Was it as many as that? He killed like 6 or 7 orc. Like, fuck, what even was... we pull up Brett's list. I don't know the name of all those orcs. Let me pull up the list from last Monday, because... And like, my bug captain was on 2 wounds, right? So like, if he didn't have all his survivability stuff, he was 100% dead, right? The only reason he was still alive is because he had armor Indomitus, and he's got 5-up shrug, and he's got all those extra wounds and stuff. So he killed 2 scrapjets, which was like 200 points. He killed basically this whole squad of squig boys, so that's 160 points. He killed a couple of knobs as well. So let's say this at this point that's like 380 points. He killed the war boss in Mega Armor, so that's 500 points. He killed both knobs on the Smash of Squigs. So like my chapter master being so survivable on his own, he killed like 600 points of stuff, right? For a 165 point model. So I mean that's why I like having my chapter master geared to surviving. But I mean this is a valid build as well, by all means. Just I think if you gear him to surviving, I mean it's not often you got a unit that can do 4x. You know, if you could spend 100 points and kill 400 points, you would do that every day of the week, right? Thanks for tuning in, Ian, and thanks for submitting the list. There's obviously not an army show without people submitting a list, so I appreciate that, Ian, and I hope I gave you some good advice. And good evening then. How you doing? Okay, so sorry, back to scoring. Mobility. Apart from the heavy metal rifle eradicators, it's very, very mobile. They're the only unit that's not mobile. I guess even if you switch out a squad of Terminators, so I guess we're 9.5 for mobility. You've got the ability to turn on off Overwatch and fight last. You don't have denies, so that's one negative. You do have units for actions. 3 damage weapons is 12, which is a little bit low. I guess if you throw out those Terminators though, you might be okay. Starting CP is 7. Which is fine. It's like borderline any lower than 7 and I'm not feeling very happy. And then protection against mortal wounds, you got it times 2. You get Soul Warden on the Primaris Chaplain on a bike. You got it on the Sanguinary Priest, and you also got Death Company who have some innate protection against mortal wounds. So actually this is going to score pretty darn high. It's just denies and 3 damage weapons that are maybe kind of low. So maybe like an 8.5. So this is actually going to be probably one of the highest scoring lists this week. It's a good list. I guess my question is, and this is going to be a question for people that want to run full melee Blood Angels builds at the moment, like, how do you deal with, for example, Tau now have a character that can make a 12-inch move if you declare him as a charge target? You know, so like, he can sit in front of the other battlesuits with a bodyguard, so you can't shoot him. If you do get close enough to charge him, he'll instantly just move 12 inches away. It's, you know, it's gonna screw us for like shield. What's the secondary where we the secondary where we have to nominate and kill an enemy character? I don't pick it. Blade of Sanguinius. So like if you typically run Blade of Sanguinius, not that I think it's a particularly great secondary, because I think the enemy can kind of, I don't like secondaries that the enemy have that much control over. But if you take Blade of Sanguinius against Tau now, you can almost guarantee 0 points. We use Infernal Pistols instead of the charge for Tau. I mean, that's great if you can get within 6 inches, Camille, but I mean, that's not always going to be possible, right? Good evening, Sellers. How you doing? It's a tough one. So this is a high scoring list, but I think even high scoring lists are going to have problems against certain things right now. Blood Angels are... I hope we get some upgrades this year. Be it point costs changes, or be it like an additional rule or something. And I hate to say it, but like Sanguinary Guard at 32 points per model now. I'm running one squad of them, but I think they're grossly overcosted. When they came out at 30 points 2 years ago, they were probably okay. But over the 2 years, we've had so many, you know, like 50% of the hard targets you want to fight against are -1 damage, so it just halves their damage. And then at 32 points per model, yeah, they're just... Sanguinary Guard, Death Company went down 2 points per model. Sanguinary Guard could easily go down like even if you made Sanguinary Guard like 28 points per model, I don't think we would see a meta where people are running, let's say, 30 Sanguinary Guard, because there's too many targets where they just don't do any damage. Like a whole squad of Sanguinary Guard will struggle to kill a single Plague Burst Crawler, you know? And then they're stuck in combat with it. The Plague Burst Crawler will just fall back, and everything else in the Death Guard army will just shoot them off the table. Assault launchers are the way to go with Tau, do you think? Do you know what? I kind of never thought of assault launchers, actually, Dirty Wizard. That's a good shout. Relic Terminators get assault launchers, right? And so do what are the big dreadnoughts? Ironclads? 5 points for Ironclad. Basically prevents Overwatch. Oh well, no, it doesn't. If they brace, they suffer D3 mortal wounds. If it ducks, then it can't subtract 1 from the. It can't fire Overwatch. What does brace mean again? That unit braces it. Oh, I mean, I guess it just stands fast and takes 3 mortal wounds. Centurion. Oh, it's Centurions that get the assault launchers. I should know that, considering I play Centurion, shouldn't I? You know, some people have talked about assault launchers as they're kind of a trap. I mean, if I was a Tau player and you spent 1 CP to assault launcher me, I would just take the 3 mortal wounds and then just continue to shoot you. I mean, 3 mortal wounds, even if it's 3 mortal wounds, it's likely 2, right? You're not killing anything. You're not killing a battlesuit. You're not making their Overwatch less effective. They'll take the 3 mortal wounds and then just shoot you anyway. So the Whirlwind or the suppressors, I guess, are good against Tau, but I don't think we're going to see many suppressors in the meta. If you all were to do a troop skew as opposed to armor to guard against massive gun lines and dilute their shots value, what heavy support units would you take? I almost want 2 Eradicators. Yeah, I mean, it probably has to be Eradicators. They are probably the best heavy support point for point. Yeah, I mean, I much prefer Eradicators to Hellblaster. Descent of the Angels is the only counter we have for the -2 charge on Tau. Yep, it certainly is. Did I hear complaining about Death Guard again? Death Guard aren't strong anymore, we can handle them. Yeah, I mean, they're not strong anymore, but they have enough to kill a squad of Sanguinary Guard that are out in the open that they can shoot, right? If I was a Death Guard player, I'd be running 3 Plague Burst Crawlers. So 2 Plague Burst Crawlers, you know, strength 8 -2, 2 damage, re-rolling 1s to wound. They have enough to kill a squad of Sanguinary Guard if one of them's in combat. And I think they can even fire. Isn't there a stratagem, Rezio, where Plague Burst Crawlers can fire in combat as well? So even if you do get Sanguinary Guard into combat with them, they're just going to shoot you anyway. It's predictable. I mean, it is predictable, but I think it's still good. For the point cost of a Plague Burst Crawler, they are pretty darn effective. Alright, so there's a couple of opinions on Slim's list, and then the final list today is Outdoor Corey. Outdoor Corey, just want to say thank you this year. So much this year, and this year and change, right? For all the knowledge and tactics I'm struggling to read now. For all the knowledge and tactics for all that is Blood Angels, what I've learned since watching has led me to step out of my campaigns and try tournaments. I've built my list similar to yours, but if there's any changes or thing I missed, please help me as I'm getting ready for a local tournament. Cheers, John, and thanks for all the work you do. May Sanguinius watch over yours. Peace. Sorry if the list is messed up. I used Battlescribe first. The first? Okay. Maybe I'm struggling to read. Maybe he's struggling to read. It's late here. Alright. Battalion, 9 CP, 1996 points. And 1 extra relic of the chapter. Okay. They're no longer the 2 last targets. Plague Burst Crawlers were reduced only as a shadow nerf. Yeah, I know. I guess they were kind of shadow nerfed. But if Marines could have a tank that has all the guns that the Plagueburst Crawler has, and the -1 damage and the toughness 8 and then vulnerable save and all that nonsense for 165 points, Reziel, I would be running them. In some ways, they're kind of better than they're kind of better than Redemptors, and they're like 30 points cheaper, right? Yeah, maybe even more points. I forget how low they put them on points. They 165 now. Alright, a Captain on a Bike, Gift of Foresight, a Plasma Pistol, Rites of War, Angel's Exemplar, the Armor Indominus, Thunderhammer, and Warlord. You need to swap out this Plasma Pistol for an Infernal Pistol 100%. 2 damage on the Plasma Pistol for a little bit more range over a potential 6 to 8 damage on the Infernal Pistol. Infernal Pistol can one-shot characters, can be very, very useful, especially on a Gift of Foresight character. I think it's really great. You could run a Meltagun as well or something, but the Infernal Pistol lets you shoot in combat, so swap that out for a start. You may also want to... Okay, Rites of War. That's good, yeah. Librarian and Terminator Armor with Null Zone and Psychic Fortress. He's the Chief Librarian with the Force Axe. This is okay. If he is the Chief Librarian, you get 1 more power. So bear in mind you get 3 powers. You can only cast 2. Scrolling down, I see you have a couple of Redemptor Dreadnoughts. So if you have the Redemptor Dreadnoughts, a good third power here actually would be Might of Heroes, because if the enemy focus on one of your Redemptors and try and kill it, you can Might of Heroes to give it +1 toughness, to put it up to toughness 8. Redemptors struggle a little bit because they have no invulnerable save, but giving them toughness 8 gives them a bit more survivability, so there's that. It is better to run the Librarian with the jump pack, the Firstborn. With the jump pack, it is going to cost you 10 more points to do that, but the mobility usually pays off. The Terminator is obviously going to be slow, and I guess Null Zone will affect himself, so it turns off his own invulnerable save when he does actually eventually cast it. But I don't hate this. Librarian and Terminator Armor is still a good character. Primaris Tech Marine with Soul Warden and Master of the Forge, and he is hero of the chapter, I guess, to get Soul Warden. He could also run Quake Bolts in this list, 1 CP, and then if he makes a single hit with his Forge Bolt, we're at 24 inches. Bear in mind it is an assault weapon, so he can move, advance, and shoot it on a BS of 3, essentially, or a hit of 3. Then that can give you great value to your melee units, so something to consider. That's what I was running my Primaris Tech Marine with, and I kind of like it. I just recently dropped my Tech Marine, but this is all solid. Assault Intercessors and Cursors, again, same troop choice as the last list. It's a very, very common option. Sometimes we see 3 squads of Incursors. I think all is decent. Bladeguard Veteran, 3-man squad. Redemptor Dreadnought with the Macro, the Onslaught, and the Rocket Pods. Another Redemptor with the Macro and the Onslaught. 2 4-man Sanguinary Guards, and I kind of dislike this in that I don't think 4-man Sanguinary Guards do a lot of killing. I think these guys work best in 7s to 9s. We've been over this. Maybe one squad of 7 would be better than 2 squads of 4, but I guess we're going to see why you've done that in a minute. We've got 5 Eradicators with the Melt Rifles. We've got the Whirlwind with a Vengeance Launcher, and I don't really rate the Vengeance Launcher. It does very little more killing than the Castellan, and the Castellan gives extra reliability for suppression fire, which is the main reason to include the Whirlwind. So I think you want the Castellan just to guarantee the suppression fire. And then you've got 2 Impulsors, I guess. One is for probably your Blade Guard, and one is for the Assault Intercessors, maybe. And we've been back and forth over Impulsor so many times. The best result I've ever seen an double Impulsor list do for Blood Angels was that 6th place at a GT. So that was 2 Impulsors full of Bladeguard veterans. The guy gets 6th place in the GT. I think he backed it up with the couple of Redemptors as well. I don't remember off the top of my head the rest of his list, but that was the best I've ever seen Blood Angels do with double Impulsors. We've seen Blood Angels win tournaments with a lot of jump infantry backed up with eradicators. We've seen Blood Angels win tournaments with jump infantry backed up with eliminators. And also, I think we've seen them win tournaments with double Redemptor or Redemptor and Relic Contemptors. Maybe. I'm not sure. Did Blood Angels, did we see one this year that won a tournament with double Redemptor? I'm going to look on my playlist. Competitive army playlists. 8th place. We got a grand tournament winning list here. We got another tournament winning list here, and then there was the recent one. We're able to break. Greetings, bro. I was gonna say, so what? This one was. So this one had one Relic Contemptor with the twin Volkites on it. Eradicators. Is that the whole list, or is there a second page? And then the Eliminators.
There's no real way to.
This one had. See the list? Double Eradicators and Inceptors. So Plasma Inceptors, Eradicators. This is kind of a skew one, and had the Sanguinary Guard, but this was like a year ago. This is when Sanguinary Guard were legitly strong. This one actually had 3 Sanguinary Guards. So 3 Sanguinary Guard, Blade Guard Veterans, Eradicators, and Inceptors. And the other tournament winning list that we had in the last year was like Attack Bikes and Inceptors. Yes, we've never seen a tournament winning list with one Impulsor, let alone 2, right? Johnception, yeah. Yeah, so that's why when people mention like Jack Harpster's melee list, I'm like, yeah, I think it's good, but like it's not won any tournaments. So I guess that's the problem, right? Like, and I guess that's the problem with Blood Angels in general at the moment, is like the 3 lists that won tournaments were like Eradicators and Inceptors, Attack Bikes and Inceptors, and Eliminators Inceptors. So it's like maybe we're all sleeping here. Maybe we need to all be running Inceptors, right? Because that's the common denominator. Impulsors don't feature. I'm thinking about changing my 2 Redemptors for 2 twin Las Cannon Contemptors, keeping the Tech Marine with them and placing them at back 40 inches away. Redemptors are just not cutting it. Don't go 2 twin Las Cannons. If you wanna make your Contemptors shooting Contemptors, then I'd probably say 1 Volkite, 1 Las Cannon. The problem with Las Cannons is the swinginess, and I have 2 Contemptors Ager, and I ran them in the tournament list that I got to the final table with, and I ran them with double Volcons. But honestly, as fire platforms go, they're good. Right, you know, like sometimes you hear about like gatekeeper lists where it's like you can do well. Like if you run 2 Relic Contemptors and you put them back, and even if you do like, because I ran them with, I think in the tournament I ran both with double Volcons. I don't think I had Cyclones on them or anything. Since then I've moved to have 1 with Cyclones on them. But I think in the tournament I ran 2 with Volcons, and I think what you'll find is they'll do pretty well, and you will win like a pretty good amount of games, but you're never going to win a tournament with them. And I guess that's the tricky part. And it'll be the same with the Las Cannons. Las Cannons suffer more than the Volcons because Las Cannons, the damage rolls are D6, and they're so unreliable, right? At least with the Volcons, you're like spitting out like mortal wounds usually because you've got like 16 shots. You can be hitting on 2s, you can be re-rolling 1s, right? So you're always going to roll some 6s when you've got 16 dice to roll, so you're always going to do some mortal wounds and then make them make some saves. They're always going to make a couple of fails as well. But Redemptors at 195 points is very, very difficult to use. with Redemptor's 195, James is going to use an Arcus and a Scorpius for 2d6 plus 3d3 strength 6 minus 2 damage, ignore line of sight shots. My shooting is now going to hide, not run up the table. I mean, that's definitely a possibility. The only thing that sucks with that, James, is you can't use suppression fire with that whirlwind. Instead of quad las cannons, what about multi-melta, cyclones, chain fists? I mean, cyclones do have a good range on them, and multi-melta chain fist means that they can whatever you want to call it, they can get in close and make a nuisance of themselves. That's how I ran mine just last week. I do think possibly like Cyclone, Volcon, Chain Fist is really good as well. I just didn't have the points to fit it into my list. I think that comes in at like 180 points or something. It's kind of one of the most expensive builds. But yeah, so this double impulsor is kind of like, I'd advise us against it big time. It's 250 points. You know, like 250 points here could be a 5-man Terminator squad, and we could make this into 7 Sanguinary Guard, and we'd have 80-something points to play with. So we could add 2 more Blade Guard veterans. So you could have a 5-man Blade Guard, you could have a 5-man Terminator squad, and you could have your Sanguinary Guard kind of merge into one big squad, and you could just lose the impulsors. I think that's a lot stronger. My experience tells me that impulsors just die, man. You run them forward and they just die, like, and they don't bring anything to your army because they die. You're much better just having a jump unit that can jump into an obscuring position and not be shot. Good luck obscuring an impulsor, right? The only time impulsor is possibly going to help you is like against indirect fire or something, or when the enemy don't have a whole lot of fire and it becomes ablative wounds. But I think there's so much D3 plus 3 damage in the meta that second D3 plus 3 is literally going to be like 2 shots kills an impulsor. Impulsor has 11 wounds, right? Yeah, 11 wounds. So, like, I remember when I played an impulsor against Andrew not that long ago. It didn't, like, in turn 1, I move it forward and then it just gets blows up. 5++ is too unreliable. Yeah, I mean, with no -1 damage, it really does feel like 5++ is not reliable at all. The impulsors are just overcosted. But anyway, I think if you were going to make some changes, that's where I'd start in this list. And I think you'll find that, Corey. If you play this list enough times, you'll be like, wow, my impulsors don't really do much. They just get blown up. And also, I mean, it's 1 CP to reserve like a squad of assault intercessors. So maybe if you want your assault intercessors, like, I think they're more likely to be able to make a charge out of strategic reserve than they are out of an impulsor. Because your impulsor is going to go forward, it's going to get blown up. If you're lucky, you're not going to lose more than, let's say, 1 guy from the explosion, and then you're probably still going to be out of range anyway. 5 Inceptors so 5 Inceptors is equivalent to Redemptor plus 3 Eradicators, which is better. I mean, I don't like plasma weaponry Terrans, and I guess now that we've got Custodes and stuff that can turn off rerolls, that makes the Inceptors even worse again. But I mean, Inceptors, the plasma ones at 60 points per model, they're 60 points per model for a reason. They're very versatile, right? Like, they can do good damage against like armor, they can do good damage against like squads. They are weak against -1 damage enemies, so you have to take that into board. If it was me, I'd probably run the Redemptor and Eradicators, but some obviously, the 3 tournament lists that have won tournaments have run Inceptors, but I just don't like Inceptors. Rizil says, I think people need to stop running Blade Guard up the field. If you're using Blade Guard as a guard unit to your own territory, hide them if possible and use them to score and control. That's probably the best sentence I've heard on Blade Guard. Maybe run them in a 3-man or a smaller squad and just use them. I mean, the other thing you can do with Blade Guard is you could reserve them. So, but yeah, Blade Guard as a defensive unit is maybe actually kind of a good way of looking at them. All right, we've got 3 troops and we've got Rights of War as well in this list, don't we? So we're looking at the same 9.5 in OBSEC. Anti-infantry, we have the 2 Redemptors, which are going to kick out a bit. We've got the Sanguinary Guard. We've got, I guess, the Whirlwind Vengeance Launcher, which I guess will kill a little bit more infantry. So yeah, we're gonna say that he's on like an 8 for anti-infantry. 3 damage weapons. Then we have the 4 Eradicators. We have the Dreadnoughts times 2 in each. That gives us 8. We get the Tetmarine with 1, we get Librarian with 1, we get the Captain with 1. We really need to swap out this Captain's Plasma Pistol. So I'm saying it's like 8.5 maybe here for killing big enemy monsters. Yeah, I think 8.5. We don't really have a huge amount of punch from our melee, which is bad, I guess, because melee is our bit. Like, most of our damage comes from melee. So if our melee is really limited to like 3 Blade Guard and 8 Sanguinary Guard, that's kind of pretty poor. Dreadnoughts will do well in melee if they can get there, but there's no Quake Bolts, so they kind of have a weakness of their weapon skill of 3. Yeah, but I mean, I guess you're backing up with some Eradicators, so you have some power there. Mobility-wise, mobility-wise, it's kind of just the Dreadnoughts and the Eradicators. The Impulsors give you mobility, but overall I wouldn't say it's that strong, so we'll say 8.5. Specialization, so we have the ability to turn off Overwatch and give the fight last. We also have Denies. We do have units for actions. We're kind of short on 3 damage weapons. Our CP is kind of decent on 9. And we also have Soul Warden for protection against mortal wounds. So, I mean, overall, this list does a lot of things right. But, and this is where my scoring system falls down, right? Because this list actually scores pretty high. 42.5 is very high, Corey. But I think that you have a big problem in that, like, you're missing melee power. And I wouldn't say any of these troops bring melee power, and right now Sanguinary Guard don't bring as much melee power as Terminators, as Vanguard Veterans, as Death Company. I think you can still run Sanguinary Guard and win games, but I think you don't want Sanguinary Guard to be your primary damage dealers, because if you come up against one of those -1 damage armies, or you come up against a very strong -1 damage unit that you need to kill, the Sanguinary Guard are not going to be the unit that can do that, right? Whereas Vanguard Veterans, Death Company, or Assault Terminators are, I think. And I think I kind of agree with what Reziol is saying, even more so, is maybe a better way to look at Blade Guard, and maybe I should do this. Maybe I should just cut Sanguinary Guard from my list and run like a smaller defensive squad of Blade Guard, and maybe add more like Vanguard Veterans or something. But I'm reluctant to lose the Sanguinary Guard. I always think that if they're around the Warlord, the +1 to hit, the reroll ones can always bring like some great value. Just it feels like every game there's more and more things that can counter them, right? And then they don't really survive, as well when you get to that sort of shooting phase. So, okay, yeah, I mean, that's sort of my opinion. The Impulsors have got to go. And I think you have to replace them with a powerful jump unit. It could be Vanguard Veterans with some hammers and lightning claws. That's a very good squad. Obviously, Storm Shields. Could be Terminators. Could be Death Company as well. Death Company are doing very well. 250 points gives you a very strong Death Company with a lot of Thunderhammers as well for that early turn 1 charge. With the prevalence of ignore LOS weaponry, the Sanguinary Guard are just too fragile. That and the fact that Tau can ignore cover bonus as well really makes the Sanguinary Guard feel very fragile, right? Because basically your Sanguinary Guard, even in cover, are only saving on 3s to -1 AP. It's kind of horrific. I actually kind of think that Tau gun that is -4 AP is just fucking stupid. I'm sorry. I don't know who designed that, but like when we have to pay 2 CP on Reavers to get, like, what is the Reavers stratagem again? Because it's pretty bad if I remember correctly, right? Reavers subtract 2 for leadership in the model, and you can play... Wasn't there a stratagem that you can make them more minus leadership? No? Is that it? It's just -2. Okay. So you have a Space Marine with a giant, big, crazy mask thing that looks like he's the Reaper of Death in your face, and it's -2 to leadership. Tau have a gun that's like 24 inches away. They can give you -4 to leadership. Ugh. Okay. Elder Death Spinners, just Murder Sanguinary Guard. I'm not really familiar with Death Spinners. I don't know if Wapedia has been updated yet. I need to get familiar with Elder. I'm supposed to be playing Elder tomorrow night. Kev hasn't got back to me yet, so if he does, has this been updated? No, not quite yet. Okay. But then when this is updated, I'll get into that. Okay. So yeah, we're supposed to be live tomorrow. Do you know what? If Kev doesn't turn up, I will call Andrew. He already messaged me. He's desperate to play. He wants to play as Tau, so I'd much rather play Kev because I feel like I got a chance to win that game if I'm playing against Tau. I feel like I've got no chance, but I mean, I can learn, I guess. Okay, and then the week after, I think I'm going to get Dukari on the channel. I'm going to text James. I think I've got a new person no one's seen before or met on the channel, so hopefully we've got Dukari coming up the week after. Yeah. Alright guys, as always, you can submit your lists if you want over in the community tab. If you did enjoy tonight's video, I do always appreciate it if you hit that like button. It definitely helps more people see the stream. Maybe play an open war game against Tau. What is open war? What is open war? I feel like I should know this. Playing Harlequins would be sweet. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anyone I know plays Harlequins, but Dukari would be a good first step. That adds something else to the channel. Oh, the cards with the wacky missions. Alright, like basically 8th edition. Okay. Is that still a thing? I didn't even know that was still a thing, James. I guess like I really have focused all my time and effort on tournament pay. Okay, open war, like you buy the cards or something? I mean, I remember 8th edition, every faction had cards, right? And like, yeah, okay, I don't own this. Oh, so this is basically interesting secondaries. Andrew must have the cards. He must have them. I did like the old 8th edition rules, but I did think that they were a bit swingy, right? Sometimes you just got shit cards and you lost games because you got shit cards. Yeah, okay. Alright, well, we won't be playing that this week, but maybe we'll get the open war cards for the future. That might actually be kind of cool. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you have the great rest of your Sunday night. I will catch you tomorrow night and 7:30 UK time. And yeah, thanks again for the submissions. And next week we have... Oh. Well, we're getting through them. Alright, next week we have Nick Smith. Move that to next week. We have Will Cherry and Nedwig747. That'll be our 3 lists next week. And what about the week after? It's going to be Steve T as the member, and then we'll figure out non-members and see. So the queue time now, if anyone is asking, the queue time for members, I guess, is just like a 2-week delay. Non-members is still quite a bit longer. So we're kind of catching up a little bit from the backlog that was Chapter Approved 2022. Unfortunately, Chapter Approved 2022 really wasn't as good for Blood Angels as we had all hoped, right? Oh well, time will tell. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys. Thanks again for hanging out. I will catch you soon. By the blood, Army made strong.